Interfaith conflicts represent some of the most complex forms of social tension, emerging from the intersection of theological differences, historical grievances, cultural diversity, and political dynamics. These conflicts extend beyond doctrinal disagreement, reflecting deeper patterns of mistrust, marginalization, and competition for social influence. At the same time, the religious traditions that contribute to division also possess the capacity to foster reconciliation, solidarity, and collective responsibility. Interfaith conflict resolution therefore operates as both a moral and practical process. It seeks not only to reduce hostility, but to reconstruct the relational foundations of coexistence. This involves transforming perceptions of difference, establishing new forms of interaction, and reaffirming the legitimacy of pluralism within shared social spaces. The process requires the integration of ethical reflection with structured approaches to peacebuilding. One of the central challenges lies in the layered nature of interfaith conflict. Doctrinal distinctions often appear irreconcilable when interpreted in isolation, while historical memories of conflict reinforce collective identities shaped by trauma and exclusion. Cultural differences in social norms, rituals, and community organization further deepen misunderstanding. In many contexts, political actors intensified these divisions by instrumentalizing religious identity for strategic purposes. As a result, interfaith conflict becomes embedded within broader systems of power and representation. Effective resolution must therefore address multiple dimensions simultaneously. It requires confronting historical narratives, countering political manipulation, and creating conditions in which new forms of interaction can emerge. This process is not limited to negotiation, but extends to the cultivation of shared ethical frameworks that recognize common human concerns. Dialogue functions as a foundational mechanism within this process. It is not oriented toward theological agreement, but toward mutual recognition and understanding. Through structured engagement, participants are able to articulate their perspectives while developing the capacity to listen and respond with empathy. This exchange gradually replaces abstract perceptions of difference with relational awareness, enabling participants to encounter one another as individuals rather than as representatives of opposing identities. Sustained dialogue also creates the conditions for the emergence of shared values. By focusing on ethical principles such as compassion, justice, and service, participants can identify points of convergence that transcend doctrinal boundaries. Over time, this process contributes to the formation of a moral community in which diversity is acknowledged and respected as an inherent dimension of social life. While dialogue establishes understanding, collaboration translates this understanding into practice. Joint initiatives enable communities to work together toward shared objectives, transforming abstract commitment into tangible experience. Through cooperative action, participants develop trust based on lived interaction rather than conceptual agreement. This experiential dimension is critical in reshaping attitudes and reducing prejudice. Collaborative efforts often prove particularly effective when they engage younger generations. Youth participation introduces new perspectives and supports the transmission of inclusive values across generations. By engaging in shared activities, young participants develop practical experience of cooperation, which reinforces long-term social cohesion and reduces the persistence of inherited divisions. Cultural sensitivity constitutes a central ethical and practical requirement in interfaith engagement. Effective processes must recognize and respect the diversity of beliefs, practices, and social structures that shape different communities. This includes awareness of symbolic meanings, social norms, and the significance of specific practices. Without such sensitivity, interventions risk reinforcing exclusion rather than promoting inclusion. Inclusivity further strengthens the legitimacy and sustainability of interfaith initiatives, ensuring the participation of diverse groups, including women, youth, and marginalized communities, expands the scope of engagement and enhances the depth of dialogue. A process that reflects the full diversity of the community is more likely to generate outcomes that are perceived as fair and representative. Institutional structures play a crucial role in sustaining interfaith engagement over time. Organizations dedicated to dialogue and cooperation provide platforms for continuous interaction, enabling communities to move beyond episodic engagement toward long-term relationship building. These structures also support capacity development, equipping participants with the skills necessary to navigate complex social dynamics. Empirical examples from diverse contexts demonstrate that effective interfaith conflict resolution depends on local adaptation and sustained commitment. Initiatives that combine dialogue, collaboration, and cultural sensitivity within context. Specific frameworks are more likely to produce durable outcomes. These approaches emphasize relationships rather than isolated interventions, creating conditions in which trust can develop gradually. The broader landscape of interfaith engagement reveals both challenges and opportunities. While divisions remain deeply rooted, the capacity for cooperation continues to expand through innovative practices and the integration of new forms of communication. Digital platforms, for example, enable connections across geographical and cultural boundaries, facilitating new forms of dialogue and coordination. Ultimately, interfaith conflict resolution is grounded in the recognition of shared human dignity. It redefines religious diversity not as a source of division, but as a foundation for ethical collaboration. When dialogue, collaboration, and cultural sensitivity are integrated within sustained institutional frameworks, interfaith engagement becomes a mechanism for building resilient and inclusive societies. This process extends beyond the resolution of specific conflicts. It contributes to the development of social systems in which diversity is not merely tolerated, but actively valued. Through continuous engagement, reflective practice, and collective action, interfaith initiatives can transform division into cooperation and establish new possibilities for coexistence in complex and pluralistic environments.